In a quiet farming community, Tom Wilson's keen eye caught something unusual in his harvest. 3 large black eggs with a strange, leathery texture. While the entire town mocked him for keeping them warm in his shed, Tom knew these weren't ordinary eggs. Weeks later, the creature that emerged from the first egg made even the wildlife experts question everything they knew. What hatched that morning changed this small town forever. But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. Life in Millbrook Valley moved at a steady pace, where seasons changed predictably and farmers knew exactly what to expect from their land. Tom Wilson had worked these fields for 20 years, and there wasn't much that could surprise him anymore. His hands knew every inch of soil, every variation in the landscape, and every crop that grew in his fields. That's why the discovery he made one crisp autumn evening stopped him in his tracks. The sun was setting over the cornfields, casting long shadows across the freshly harvested grain as Tom sorted through the day's yield. His weathered hands moved methodically through the pile when something unusual caught his attention. At first, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him, but there, nestled among the golden grains, lay 3 dark objects that had no business being there. Tom carefully picked one up, his farmer's instinct telling him something was very wrong. The object was smooth and leathery, completely unlike anything he'd encountered in his fields before. They were eggs, but not just any eggs. These were almost twice the size of chicken eggs, with a strange black coloring and a texture that felt alien in his calloused hands. 20 years of farming experience told him these weren't from any local bird species. The next morning, Tom brought his unusual find up at Randy's Diner, where local farmers gathered for their morning coffee. The reaction wasn't what he expected. Bill Parker, whose farm bordered Tom's property, nearly choked on his coffee laughing. "Duck eggs," Bill declared, wiping tears from his eyes. "Our friend Tom here is getting worked up over some rotten duck eggs." The diner erupted in laughter. Even Mike, Tom's closest friend since high school, couldn't help but crack a smile. But Tom knew better. He'd seen plenty of duck eggs in his time, and these were something else entirely. Back home, Tom's family wasn't any more supportive. His wife Sarah shook her head when he set up an old incubator in the shed, muttering about wasted electricity. His teenage children started calling him the Eggman at dinner, complete with their own made-up song. But Tom couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The eggs' texture, their size, their unexpected presence in his harvest, none of it added up. He began checking on them multiple times a day, monitoring their temperature and keeping detailed notes of any changes. Days turned into weeks, and Tom's egg obsession became the talk of the town. Every morning at Randy's Diner, someone had a new joke about Tom's collection. Bill Parker was particularly relentless, making exaggerated clucking noises whenever Tom walked in. "Hey, Eggman," Bill would call out, "those mystery eggs of yours revealed any government secrets yet?" The community's mockery started wearing on Tom. Even Sarah began suggesting he should focus on preparing for the next planting season instead of playing scientist in the shed. But something deep in his gut told him to keep watching, keep waiting. As autumn deepened into winter, the jokes continued. But Tom noticed something else too. Subtle changes in the eggs. The leathery shells seemed to be growing tighter, and occasionally he could swear he saw movement inside. One particularly cold morning, Mike pulled Tom aside after breakfast at the diner. "Listen, buddy," he said, genuine concern in his voice. "Maybe it's time to let this go. You're becoming the town joke, and it's not good for business." Tom appreciated his friend's concern, but he couldn't explain the nagging feeling that kept drawing him back to those eggs. Something was coming. He could feel it in his bones, the same way he could feel when a storm was approaching his fields. The mockery reached its peak at the winter farming community meeting. Bill Parker stood up during the open discussion and made a dramatic presentation about the great egg mystery of Millbrook Valley, complete with badly drawn pictures. The room roared with laughter, and Tom felt his face burning with embarrassment. But nature has a way of proving people wrong when they least expect it. The very next morning, Tom headed out to the shed for his daily egg check. The moment he opened the door, he knew something was different. There was a strange scratching sound coming from the incubator. His heart pounding, Tom approached slowly. The scratching grew louder, more insistent. As he peered into the incubator, his breath caught in his throat. One of the eggs was moving, rocking back and forth with purpose. A crack appeared in the leathery shell, then another. Tom stood transfixed as something pushed its way out into the world. When he finally saw what emerged, his blood ran cold. This was no bird. This was something that should never have been found in a Midwest farm field. The creature that emerged was small but unmistakable. A baby black crocodile, its scales glistening in the dim light of the shed. Tom stumbled backward, his mind racing. How was this possible? They were hundreds of miles from any natural crocodile habitat. With trembling hands, Tom took photos with his phone and immediately called the local authorities. The dispatcher's skeptical tone changed quickly when he sent the pictures. Within hours, his quiet farm became the center of attention as government wildlife officials descended on the property. The investigation that followed revealed a truth stranger than any of the theories that had circulated through Randy's diner. 30 miles away, a private exotic animal farm had been secretly breeding rare black crocodiles. Months ago, they'd had a breach in their facility, something they'd kept quiet to avoid bad publicity. A female crocodile had escaped, laid her eggs, and been recaptured, leaving behind her clutch of eggs in Tom's fields. The revelation sent shockwaves through the community, but none felt it more strongly than Bill Parker. His teenage son Jimmy had spent the entire summer swimming and fishing in the creek that ran between their properties. The same creek where investigators found evidence of the mother crocodile's presence. The morning after the news broke, Bill walked into Randy's diner and headed straight for Tom's table. The usual mocking grin was gone, replaced by a pale, shaken expression. Without a word, Bill pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. "My boy," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Jimmy was in that water almost every day. If you hadn't..." He couldn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. The thought of what could have happened hung heavy in the air. The community's attitude shifted overnight. The farmers who had laughed the loudest now spoke of Tom's attention to detail with respect. His egg obsession had potentially saved lives. The local paper ran a story about the importance of taking unusual observations seriously, featuring Tom's discovery as a prime example. The baby crocodile was safely relocated to a proper facility, but the impact of Tom's discovery lasted long after the excitement died down. The incident became a cautionary tale about the danger of dismissing concerns just because they seem unlikely. Tom never lorded his vindication over anyone, not even Bill Parker. Instead, when asked about it, he would simply say that farming had taught him to pay attention to the small things, because sometimes the smallest detail could make the biggest difference. The 3 eggs that appeared in Tom's harvest that autumn day did more than just reveal an escaped exotic animal. They taught an entire community that sometimes the strangest things deserve our closest attention, and that mockery is a poor substitute for curiosity. And you, what would you do if you found something inexplicable in your backyard tomorrow? Would you listen to those who dismiss your concerns, or would you trust your instincts and keep digging for the truth?